Alright guys, what is up here? And today we're doing something a little bit different here. I finally returned to making Train Turns talk show episodes. The reason why I took off for a while was because that I ran out of ideas. So instead of talking about locomotives and train symbols and stuff, we're going to be talking about the rolling stock. And I'm going to tell you about each freight car that you would normally see here. So let's get started. Alright, so for our first set of freight cars that we are going to be learning about, take a look at these cars moving right now. These freight cars that you are seeing right now are hopper cars. There are two different types of hopper cars. These that you are seeing right now are open hopper cars. These open hopper cars are mainly used to haul things like coal, coke, rock, ballast, you name it. And then on this side, these are covered hopper cars. The top is not opened or anything. These are used to haul things like grain, potash, etc. Alrighty, so let's pause it right there. See that little small Wisconsin Central grain car? This is also a covered hopper car, but it's a lot smaller. There are smaller variants of each freight car usually. This right here is a bumper car. These are often used on crude oil trains that around here. You'll see one of these bumper cars set on the front and on the back. There are all different kinds of them. And there are smaller sized grain cars. Those are usually used for bumper cars on crude oil trains. Some crude oils won't have those, but most of them usually do. And sometimes even a DPU will come with it as well. Alright, so this is our next set of freight cars here. These black freight cars right here are in a tube-shaped form. These are tank cars. These tank cars here are used to haul various kinds of liquids like oil, fuel, or flammable liquids, chemicals, ethanol, you name it. These tanker cars will haul all kinds of liquids. There is also a smaller variant of tanker cars as well. And these tanker cars are only seen on mixed freights and oil trains, or crude oil trains, or whatever you want to call them. Alright, so take a look at these other cars right here. These cars right here are called autoracks, or the fancy term for them, you could call them vehicular carriers. That's what Railroad Picture Archives calls them. But these right here are just called autorack cars. These are used to haul vehicles. And that's really all there is to them. Huh. Alright, so take a look at this Operation Lifesaver unit. This does look like an open hopper car, but this is actually a gondola. They're a little bit different from open hopper cars. It's a little bit smaller, as you can see. Then there's also these kinds of gondolas right here. There are two types of gondolas. These ones appear to be a lot smaller. These can be used to haul things like scrap iron. These cars here also look like open hopper cars, but these are actually ballast cars. They haul solid things like rock or ballast or whatever. And then there's also Herzog ballast cars as well. There's a lot of variants for ballast cars. BNSF has their own ballast cars, as you can see in this video. And then there's also similar small cars like that, like iron ore cars. These are also ballast cars, but ballast cars can also haul iron ore. There are some iron ore trains on the BNSF as well. And now, probably one of the most classic rolling stocks of all of them, the boxcars. There are also a ton of variants of boxcars, like these NS boxcars. Then there's also taller boxcars like these TBOX boxcars. Then there's also the old 86-footer boxcars from the 1960s. But there are a ton of boxcars everywhere. And honestly, one of my favorite rolling stocks. Alright, now take a look at this intermodal train moving right now on the Canadian National. You may think that these cars here are called Intermodal Cars, but that is actually incorrect. The containers are intermodal, but the car itself is not an intermodal car. These are actually called bare table cars. That's the correct name for them. Notice right now that these bare table cars are actually connected to each other by one axle. Some of these bare table cars are connected like that. Right there, that was 5 of them connected together. And then there's 4 right there. But those aren't actually 4 bare table cars. It's actually all one car joined together. So this would only be counted as one car instead of 4. This is a very, very common thing to see on intermodal trains. I don't know why it's like that, but I find it kind of cool. Some autorack cars are even like that as well. But those are not as common as bare tables. Next up here, we also have these kinds of cars. They are similar to bare table cars. They are flat like bare table cars, but these are a little bit different. These here are called flat cars or flatbed cars. These things can be used to haul like narrow gauge locomotives like this right here. And these things can also be very useful when a derailment happens, like if a freight car loses its wheel and it needs to be moved. The railroads will use these flat cars and put the derailed cars on there to clean up the mess. So these things can be very useful at times. These are completely different from bare table cars. And sometimes flat cars can also be used to haul truck frames, military equipment, maintenance of way equipment as well. These cars right here are about as tall as a boxcar, but looks a little bit different. Anyways, these cars right here only haul one thing and only have one purpose, and that is to haul lumber. These cars here are called center beam cars, and they haul lumber. That's literally all that they do. This is what an empty center beam car looks like. And lots of the times when it hauls lumber, it's tarped up. There's what a full one looks like. And this one here, I just absolutely could not leave out. Most rolling stock cars usually have 4 axles, some of them even with 6. But this one? 36 axles. My gosh, this car is huge. And there are variants of them as well. This is CEBX 800. Then there's also WECX 801. This is the Schnabel car. I probably pronounced that wrong. Schnabel. Almost sounds like German. But this is the biggest freight car in the world. 36 axles. Crazy. And this beast right here weighs over 400 tons and is 231 feet long and has a load limit of more than 1,000 tons. And if you're wondering what that is in pounds, 1,000 tons converts to 2 million pounds. And of course, we just could not leave this one out as well. Probably one of my all-time favorites as well. The good old caboose. This is also a part of the rolling stock. This here is probably one of the rarest rolling stock types that you can catch today. The Schnabel is also a pretty rare rolling stock. Cabooses were used all the time, and they were common as dirt back then. But when the 80s and 90s hit, that's when cabooses started to get replaced by one-eyed conductors. One-eyed conductors is a little flashing red on the back of a freight car. Something like this right here. That, my friend, is the one-eyed conductor, the thing that replaced cabooses. I do miss cabooses a lot, and I wish I could have seen them, but I was able to get this picture of a Burlington Northern caboose. Cabooses are also displayed at a lot of railroad museums, and sometimes even in parks, like the IC 9415 caboose in Centralia, Illinois. on display along with the steam engine IC2500. We're not done yet. So, these cars right here, kind of small. They are pretty small, almost like a gondola. What are these cars called anyway? Well, these cars, I believe, haul steel or coil. These are called coil cars. And they just really haul steel and coil, and that's really all there is to them. Ah, yes, and we also just could not forget the good old classic passenger car. These cars, as you should already know, are used to carry people to reach their destination. Amtrak is a passenger service. Metra, Brightline, Caltrain, Metrolink, you name it. There are a lot of passenger services out there, Amtrak being the biggest one. There are a ton of variants of passenger cars. I mean, there are so many of them. I'm just not even going to bother to talk about them. And then we also have these kinds of Amtrak cars. These are much bigger and taller. These are superliner coaches. And then these cars right here are where the people will place their luggage, since a lot of people pack suitcases. These are baggage cars. And then, the last but not least, we could not forget about these. These are road railers. These are actually semi-trailers, and they are connected by an axle, just one little axle, and they are connected just like that. These right here are Triple Crown trains. Every railroad used to have their own Triple Crown train, even Amtrak. However, though, Norfolk Southern is the last railroad today that still runs Triple Crown trains. There are only two Triple Crown trains left in existence, and that is NS trains 255 and 256. 255 is a westbound train, while 256 is an eastbound. Alright, well, now that we have successfully went over all of the types of rolling stock, I hope I didn't forget any, now let's go ahead and take a closer look at detail at them. Let's zoom in a little bit to the left. Look at these letters and numbers. These letters right here shows the owners of them, and then these are the numbers. It's almost like the locomotive numbers. However, though, a lot of rolling stock cars have more than 4 numbers. Usually, all locomotives have 4 numbers, but this rolling stock here, has 6 numbers. Sometimes they'll rarely have 4, and mostly they'll have 5 to 6 numbers right here. And this here is rolling stock. They have an owner and a number, just like a locomotive. In this case right here, this is WFRX 865-240. WFRX is Wells Fargo Railway. And finally, for our last thing here, plates. There are plates included, like this right here. This is the plate right here. You'll see that it says a C. Well, plates on freight cars are classified by letters. Usually, tanker cars and grain cars have C plates. Some grain cars can have B plates. Some boxcars and centerbeam cars have F plates. Open hopper cars also have F plates usually. And these auto rack cars right here have K plates. Now, I'm not really sure how plates work and stuff, but a lot of the times it just really depends, because like I've seen auto rack cars with K plates like this one right here. I've seen auto racks with F plates before. It all really kind of depends. I'm not really sure how the plate thing works, but if one of you guys can tell me in the comment section, that would be sweet. But yeah, anyway guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Train Terms Talk Show. I hope you enjoy my return of Train Terms Talk Show. And yes, I have a new microphone right here. It sounds pretty similar to the old one, but I think I like this one better, and it's a lot more comfortable in my ears as well. Anyways, that is it for today, fellas. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss an upload.